Hello, this is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan on a Tuesday. Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan. Alright, we got, might be a little shorter than most of my podcasts, but we are probably getting back on track this week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I should be able to get podcasts in. And then I think next week also should be a full... Yeah. There's no reason next week shouldn't be a full week. So, there you go. I'm going to open up with basketball, even though I've been focusing mainly on football recently. Alright. So, James Dolan. There was an article that came out stating that he loves Julius Randle. He's a huge fan. Obviously, there is extension negotiations for Julius Randle at this time. So, bit of a concern here. First of all, I wouldn't take advice from James Dolan for basketball, but he's more of a businessman than he is manager, but I do think he has some influence on the Knicks, obviously. And I'm hoping the Knicks, they seem to be getting on track and making good decisions in the front office, which is not normal for the Knicks. I'm a little worried they're going to be impulsive. Take this story that James Dolan is a huge fan of Julius Randle and give him a max extension, which he hasn't earned, nor does he deserve. Right? He's not the star player on the team. That's Jalen Brunson. He might be the number 2 guy. He's an important piece to the Knicks. So, I personally would re-sign him if I were in the Knicks position, but I just can't get myself in a space where I would want to give him the max. Right? Because their depth is what makes them good, so they have to keep Randle, but if they give him a max, they're not going to have enough to pay more important pieces of the team, like Jalen Brunson. Right? So he's going to be a valuable asset, but you have to be careful on how much you pay him. There has to be a limit. There has to be a certain number that you're willing to give him, and it can't be the max. All right, so coaches and executives voted on the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, and Brock Purdy is the main name that people are complaining about being off of it. He was labeled a system quarterback, which I'm not sure I entirely agree with. I do think he has talent, but it's hard to believe he can succeed in another system, right? Kyle Shanahan made a Super Bowl with Jimmy G. He had Jimmy G looking like a Super Bowl MVP, right? But we all know that Jimmy G doesn't have that kind of talent at all. So when you have Shanahan as your coach, you got George Kittle, and you have Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, and a defense that backs you up well, and the best running back in the league, CMC. Put Purdy on another team, it's not going to be the same thing. Right? You put him on the Jaguars. They're not I think you put him on the Jaguars, he's not even close to this successful. Right? I would argue if you put Baker Mayfield on this team, they're a little more successful than they are right now. I don't think Mayfield is much better than Purdy. I think they're in a similar range, like top 11 to 15. But I do think Mayfield's better. And I think Dak is better. As much time as I spent crapping on Dak, I think he is a better quarterback than Purdy. I think he's top 12 in the league. I think. So, okay, I'll give you the list just for reference. They got Mahomes at 1, that's obvious. They have Burrow at 2, which I don't mind. I do think... I don't know, it's tough to say. They got 2 to 5 pretty much right. I would personally switch Stafford with Herbert, but anyway, I said this a few days ago. Mahomes is 1, and then 2 to 5 is interchangeable. So they win with 2 Burrow, 3 Josh Allen, 4 Lamar, then 5 Stafford at 6 Herbert. I would flip that. I would say 5 Herbert, 6 Stafford, but pretty good list. They got CJ Stroud at 7, which is pretty good. Aaron Rodgers at 8, which I think is fair. He's a 40-year-old who just tore his Achilles. And the last time he played with the Packers, that was the worst year he's had since, 2008, which, in all honesty, still was a pretty good year, in all honesty. But, you can't put Rodgers in the top 5 anymore when he just came off an injury and had his worst year the last time he played. But they got Goff at 9, which I like. Prescott at 10, I feel like Prescott being at 10 is slightly high. The thing is, I know what you're all thinking. Well, who would I replace that 10 spot with if it's not Purdy? And honestly, it's tough to say. I mean, listen, this is... It's tough to say because I think Jordan Love's another guy I would put in the 11 to 15 range, but I do still think Jalen Hurts is top 10. What worries me about Jalen Hurts is that the offense has gotten worse, and I'm going to get into this more in depth later in the show. But the offense has seen significant decline since Shane Steichen left. And the great quarterbacks can operate under the worst OCs there are. But yeah, so the top 10, I can kind of get behind that. In the 11 to 15 range, I would have Dak Prescott, Baker, Tua, Love, and Purdy probably. That's not the order. That's just the way I have it. But there's other guys, obviously. Kyler Murray is still very talented. And Kirk Cousins is always reliable. He's just never been better than top 15, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, it's not crazy that he's left off the top 10. It's not ridiculous. It's... You put any of those 10 guys on the Niners, and they're probably Super Bowl champions. Put Dak on the Niners, Jared Goff, Rodgers, Stroud, Herbert, Stafford, Lamar, Josh, Burrow, and Mahomes. Putting in those guys on the Niners, and they're better than they are with Purdy. All right. Anyway, I spoke of Baker, which I didn't realize would lead me into my next story. He made a comment saying the NFL is fun when you aren't being thrown around like dirty laundry. Obviously, this is reference to him being tossed around to the Rams, Panthers, and then finally to the Bucks. And I did enjoy seeing his kind of comeback year last year. I was a little down on him in his last few years with the Browns. But he definitely made a good bounce back. I now believe he's a top 15 quarterback in the league. And, he has a lot of talent. He always showcased it. He brought the Browns to the playoffs, which 10 years ago was considered impossible. So, I mean, being traded does suck when you really think about it, but it is, it's the job you signed up for. If you don't perform the way a team wants, you're going to get traded. You're not going to stay there. But, pretty much being told, he's pretty much being told you have to move to this specific place, Not that LA and Carolina are bad places to live, but maybe Mayfield doesn't want to live there. I do imagine they're better than Cleveland, though. But yeah, Mayfield, he seems to have found his place, found his footing as a quarterback, and I think the Bucs are going to win that division this year. And Mayfield's he's only 29. He's still got some time to pick his career completely back up. And because the Bucs, the Panthers aren't going to do anything in that division. I am interested in the Falcons, but I don't think they're going to be better than the Bucs. I do think they're going to have a jump because Kirk Cousins is an upgrade from Desmond Ridder. And, but I think the Bucs are better than them right now. Then the Saints are also an interesting team. I have no idea what they're going to do. But, those three teams are interesting. I think the Bucs are the upper hand. All right, so there were rumors, get this, that the Eagles were looking at Bill Belichick. Now, I've kind of been down on Belichick since Brady left because obviously, when a quarterback leaves and your team gets so much worse, it kind of speaks volumes to how you are as a coach. And I know Belichick, he is the best to ever do it. 6 rings, no other coach has done that. But it's, Sean McVay went from Goff to Stafford. He won with Stafford, but still made a Super Bowl with Goff. He had success with both. Shanahan made a Super Bowl with both Purdy and Garoppolo. Right? So, the top coaches in the league right now have done it with different quarterbacks. And I get that. Mac Jones, I said it from the moment he was about to be drafted, from before he was getting drafted, that he was probably going to be a bust because those Alabama quarterbacks are typically unsuccessful in the NFL. Before Jalen Hurts and Tua, who have found some success, they've made playoffs, they've shown a lot of talent. But before them, the last quarterback to have a successful career and come out of Alabama was Ken Stabler. Remember him? I don't know how old the people that listen to my podcast are. But, Ken Stabler, he was a great quarterback for the Raiders. Very under the radar. But, I would love to... I wish I could take a poll. Because I'm currently at 242 downloads right now on my show. I wonder how many of those people know who Ken Stabler is. And that would just be the poll question. The poll question would be titled, "Do you know who Ken Stabler is?" Like, and just see. And like I said, he had a great career. But, like, that's the last person to come out of Alabama and be successful. That's... It's not a great thing for Alabama there. But, Jalen Hurts and Tua have found some sort of success. But anyway, back to the point. Great coaches work with different quarterbacks. What worries me about Nick Sirianni, because Nick Sirianni spoke on this, what he said was, it's tricky to think about things you can't control, right? What worries me about him is Philly has fired much more successful coaches. Andy Reid got to 5 NFC championships, got fired. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl and got fired by Philly not too long after. So for a guy who has had maybe 1 or 2 successful seasons with Shane Steichen as his offensive coordinator, and then once Shane Steichen left, showed significant decline in the offense, I don't think it's very hopeful for good old Nicholas right now. You know, like, I think, yeah, Philly looked good at the beginning of last year. I think that was momentum resulting from Steichen, that Steichen had going from last year. That might sound a little weird, but there's no other way to explain how they went from being one of the best offenses in the league the first 4 weeks to all of a sudden the last 4 weeks looking like a complete mess. And the way I see that is they were rolling off of Shane Steichen's play calling. And then once Nick Sirianni took over, it just slowly got worse and worse. So that's what worries me with Philly. And that's why I think Dallas is going to win the division again. Because Philly is just... they're just a question mark. Like, the way they went out last year was awful. Right? Like, that was a complete meltdown. They went from being one of the best in the NFC to losing 4 straight to losing in the first round, being upset in the first round in the Bucs. So, it's hard to say I believe in them, but maybe they can prove me wrong. I think Nick Sirianni has 1 more year to save his job. And if he's unsuccessful this year... if he's unsuccessful this year, I don't see any way he doesn't get fired. Right? Because if they fired Doug Peterson like 2 years after he won a Super Bowl, they fired Andy Reid after years of success. You know, Philly, they're not a flexible organization, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But what I'm saying is, Sirianni doesn't have much hope. You know, but back to my point about Belichick. You know, yeah, maybe Mac Jones was just a bad quarterback. But, I don't know. It's just hard for me to... I just always thought Bill Belichick was a great... Bill Belichick is far and away the best defensive coach ever. Where my question mark is offensively. Once Brady left, and I know Mac Jones may have not been the right quarterback, but it is possible that Belichick is just not good at calling the offensive plays. He gave Matt Patricia the offensive play calling. That guy's a defensive guy. You know, that shows you... because Belichick's a smart guy. He knows, I don't know how to call offensive plays. I'm giving it to whoever is willing to do it. You know? So I think once the offense lost Tom Brady, Belichick was exposed. His lack of offensive knowledge was exposed. Like I said, brilliant on the defensive side, but offense is kind of lacking. All right. I've been trying to get away from lists because what I realize is every time a sports talk radio host makes a list, there's always something wrong with it. Like, at least one thing that someone complains about, right? Like, even if the list is relatively good, there's going to be some sort of issue that someone has with it. Or multiple people have with it. So I thought about doing my top 10 coaches today because I got the idea. Colin Cowherd did it on The Herd because I watch that show pretty much every day. He did his top 10 coaches, which got me thinking about doing mine. But it might be better just to review his list. Listen, I'll tell you, I mainly agree with this list for the most part. He has the right people on it. Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Harbaugh, Tomlin, Sean Payton, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Stefanski, McDermott. He put DeMeco Ryans at number 10. I would have probably put Mike McDaniel. But 10 is kind of interchangeable the way I see it. You could put Mike McDaniel, Kevin O'Connell maybe. Dan Campbell did a great job with the Lions, and DeMeco Ryans did a phenomenal job with the Texans. So, I would personally put Mike McDaniel at the 10 spot because he's had more sustained success with the Dolphins. Because I can't put Dan Campbell or DeMeco Ryans in the top 10 yet because they've had one good year. And yeah, I know, it's the Lions and the Texans. So, one good year is like an eternity to them. But it's still one good year for the coach, right? You can't overreact too much. So I would put Mike McDaniel probably at the 10 spot. He had Sean McDermott at the 9, which I agree with. That's probably the best place for him. Because we did see a decline. I think once Brian Daboll left as the offensive coordinator, we saw Sean McDermott's weakness on the offensive side of coaching. So, I mean, we'll see this year if he proves me wrong, but I think 9 is the best place for him. He had Stefanski at 8, which I, again, agree with. He completely turned the Browns around. They were a laughingstock, and now they're, well, a pretty good team. And he's won Coach of the Year twice. So, there you go. Number 7, he had Matt LaFleur, which, again, pretty good spot for him. Like I think the last 3, like McDermott, Stefanski, and LaFleur, you can't put them any higher or lower. Like, I think LaFleur is better than Stefanski, McDermott, and Mike McDaniel. But he's not better than the Shanahan, Payton, Tomlin, and, Harbaugh, McVay, Reid. He's not better than those 6. Now, here's where most people have a problem with his list. He has Kyle Shanahan at 6. Now, I would personally put Shanahan a bit higher. For right now, I would put him ahead of Sean Payton. Probably put him ahead of Tomlin as well. Like, I would probably put Shanahan at number 4 right now. But, I think what holds him back is the fact that he's 0-2 in Super Bowls as a head coach, right? Like, Sean Payton's won a Super Bowl before. Tomlin has. Harbaugh has. McVay's won a Super Bowl. And Reid's won 3. So, it's hard to put Shanahan ahead of them. What would make me put Shanahan ahead of Sean Payton is the fact that Sean Payton has had, 2 pretty rough years in a row. And Tomlin is one of my favorite coaches ever, to be honest with you. He develops players brilliantly. He is a great defensive coach. And since Tomlin started coaching, only the Packers and Patriots have a better record than the Steelers. Since the year Tomlin started coaching, only the Packers and Patriots have a better combined record. So he's a brilliant coach. He just lacks a bit on the offensive side of things, the way I see it. Listen, it's not an insult saying someone is the 5th best coach in the entire NFL is not an insult. I just think Shanahan's a little bit better right now. And I do think Shanahan will win a Super Bowl sooner or later. Alright, so his top 3 we're getting into. I agree with his top 3. Number 3 is he's got John Harbaugh. I do think you can argue Harbaugh for second behind Reid, but yeah, Harbaugh, the Ravens always have a great run game, great defense, great special teams. Their players are always developed very well. Harbaugh's just done it right since he got there. He's been fantastic. He has a Super Bowl back in 2013. I don't think Joe Flacco was as good as John Harbaugh made him look, in all honesty. So you could argue Harbaugh over McVay, but what I like about McVay is he has had... So not only has he dealt with... He hasn't only had success with 2 different quarterbacks. He has had 8 different quarterbacks take the field for him. Because remember, you had like both Stafford and Goff have had injury problems. So he's had a total of 8 quarterbacks take the field for him in 7 seasons as a coach. And he's done this all with primarily a great division. Last year, the division wasn't that great, but when the Seahawks and Niners were, when they had Russell Wilson and the Niners were still being the Niners, the Rams, they have not had it easy, right? And yet Sean McVay still has a Super Bowl. He's made 2 Super Bowls. He won a Super Bowl at 36. And in spite of everything he's faced, he's won 60% of his games. So I would put McVay over Harbaugh, but it's easy. You could turn me the other way pretty easily. And number 1 is Andy Reid. I don't think that's too crazy of a take. All right. So the basketball world kind of met football when Kevin Durant compared Jaden Daniels to himself. He said he was the KD of college football last year. And, I can't make a basketball comparison to football because it just doesn't make sense. But, Jaden Daniels, listen, I've been pretty clear what I see in him. He's talented. He's starting to gain a little more size. I see a lot of Lamar Jackson when he came into the league. Lamar, he was skinnier, he was fast, he was talented. But he was inaccurate. He was kind of reckless on the field. That's what I can see from Jaden Daniels this upcoming year, right? Like, he's going to show that you're going to see pretty early, this guy has the talent. He has what it takes to be a great quarterback in the league. It's going to depend on how Washington develops him. Right? Because Lamar had John Harbaugh, who, as I mentioned before, develops players really well. So he was set up for success pretty early. But Jaden Daniels is in a much different position. He fell, or didn't really fall. He went to Washington. Lamar fell to number 30, which got him with a good organization. He went to Washington early. So, maybe they can turn it around, start developing players well, but it's all going to depend. But yeah, I think we'll see some good stuff from them. All right, so I'm going to end the show with this segment. Brandon Ayuk has requested a trade from the 49ers. Sorry, that came out really slow. But Ayuk, I think there is a way that the Niners could get rid of him and still be as successful as they were last year. Ayuk is a weird fit with the Niners, right? Because Brock Purdy isn't really a deep ball kind of guy, and that's kind of Ayuk's specialty, right? So obviously Christian McCaffrey was last year, and he is going to be this year the main focal point of that offense because he's Christian McCaffrey. But Brandon Ayuk, I don't think he mixed well with Purdy. I think Purdy was much rather would throw the ball to George Kittle or Deebo Samuel. Those seem to be the two guys he leaned most to last year. So, I think Brandon Ayuk leaving could actually do more good. Like, the positives could outweigh the negatives. I think ultimately they're going to smooth this over, and Ayuk won't get traded, but it's not bad to speculate how it's going to turn out for them. All right, 30 minutes on the dot. Pretty good timing. This was good stuff today. Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan. Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan. Have a good day. I will see you tomorrow.